when is the economy going to recover? And I want to set it up this way with three commonly held shapes of recoveries. And I've used here this tennis ball example, and it's probably the best way I know to be able to communicate what are those types of recoveries that we traditionally see. The first one is this V-shaped recovery, and you see the top left there, and that tennis ball is brand new. It's shiny almost. You've just popped the top there, and you can smell that smell of a new tennis ball. And that's a tennis ball that if you throw it down, you're gonna hit it on the ground. It's gonna bounce right back up into your hand. And we know right now what is happening with our economy is we're slowing down and we're taking this ride down that we're going to talk about in just a minute. So that's the V-shaped recovery, this ride down and this exhilarating ride back up. The second option is a U-shaped recovery, and I've used a tennis ball there that's been hit a little bit. It's maybe been played with, and it's been in the garage for a while, and it doesn't have quite the bounce that it used to have, but you can still hit it, you can still play with it. And this U-shaped recovery is an economy where we start slowly slipping, we go into recession, and we slowly come out of it. Okay, and so not as much bounce as the V-shape, and we've called this before the ugly brother of the V-shape. Certainly not the V, but not the L either. And the L at the bottom here is an older tennis ball. This one we pulled out of a bucket in the garage. The dog bit a piece out of it. It doesn't bounce anymore. It's not as doesn't have the the inflation that a new tennis ball would have. And the L-shaped is the evil cousin, if you will, of the V-shaped and U-shaped recovery. It's the tennis ball when you throw it down, you hit it on the ground, and it just rolls off. It doesn't bounce back up. And that would be a swift decrease down and then staying down for a while. So what we want to do in looking at this is say, what are major financial institutions calling for right now? And so in this, what we have is a graphic here that shows Q1 through Q4 of this year in what the four major financial institutions are calling for and showing this V-shaped recovery. All four of these institutions are calling for recovery. You can see in the third quarter, Wells Fargo is saying we see a little bit of negative GDP in the third quarter. The other three are saying that, but they all agree in the fourth quarter. So sometime in the second half of this year, and a lot of questions to be answered in that, we see that recovery happening. So let's look at a couple of places that we have followed to give kind of a little bit of context to this V-shaped recovery. In the first slide I want to hop in here is the Harvard Business Review. It says here, it's worth looking back at history to place the potential impact path of COVID-19 empirically. In fact, V-shapes monopolize the empirical landscape of prior shocks, including epidemics such as SARS, the H3N2 and H2N2 flu, and Spanish flu. Okay, so what are they saying here? When you go into this study, and if you're a KCM member, you have access to this study, you see that Harvard studied prior pandemics, epidemics, and monopolized every one of them showed this V-shaped recovery. So as we look back in the past and we study those, we can see a V. Now, does that mean that's absolutely going to happen this time? It doesn't. But when we study history, that is what Harvard is saying based on that study, that V-shapes monopolize. It's the only thing you see in the past, okay? Let's also look at John Burns Consulting. And John Burns Consulting says, historical analysis showed us that pandemics are usually V-shaped, sharp recessions that recover quickly enough to provide little damage to home prices. And some very cutting-edge search engine analysis by our information management team showed the current showdown is playing out similarly thus far. So who's John Burns Consulting? They do a lot of consulting to hedge fund, large builders that are looking for data to make decisions on in our industry. So very respected. And they're saying, hey, when we look at the history, we see V-shape. So what do we have? We have four institutions that they say, we're looking at this V-shaped recovery. We have Harvard, the Harvard Business Review, John Burns Consulting, saying, this is what we see happening. And there's two things we really want to look at when we look at these types of things. We want to look at trusted sources, which what we've done, and trusted forecasts. Now, I will tell you, forecasts are just now starting to come out of what do we see happening looking forward. And the one that I want to draw your attention to right now is from Ivy Zellman in the Z Report. And here's what Ivy says. Supported by our analysis of home price dynamics through cycles and other periods of economic and housing disruption, we expect home price appreciation to decelerate from current levels in 2020, though easily remain in positive territory year over year. So deceleration, but remaining positive, not depreciation. And given the beneficial factors of record low inventories and a historically low interest rate environment, we see a positive market. And so what I wanted to talk about there is we see deceleration of appreciation, but not depreciation. We graphed that at KCM to really show the comparison of the Z Report's forecast prior to the pandemic and now during it. And what we see in 2020, originally they were calling for 4.7% appreciation of homes across this country. And today they're calling for about 3%. Next year in 2021, they originally started out saying about 3.8% appreciation, and they've adjusted that to 4.2, adjusted up. They had not yet forecasted 2020, but have now adjusted that or forecasted that to 4.6%. But what's the important thing here? You don't see any red bars. You don't see any depreciation right now. And other forecasts are coming in. As we have those, we're going to bring those to KCM members so that they have the most up-to-date forecast in our business.